All right. So if you want to learn how to get leads from Instagram and grow your Instagram presence as a real estate agent, you're going to definitely want to watch this training all the way through. You might be asking yourself, like, who is this guy? Who is Chris Colgan? Well, I've been doing real estate for over 20 years, and I actually took a sneaker page from 0 to 100,000 followers about 2 years ago, and I got featured on Complex in Barstool Sports. And I took all the strategies that I learned from that and I applied it to my real estate business. So I'm going to teach you guys everything that I have learned on Instagram and how you can grow a page just like I did here in my local market. So let's talk a little bit about real estate and Instagram and how it all kind of meshes together. The one thing I really like about Instagram is that it's allowed me to kind of be a local celebrity here in my market. And I get leads every month, and a lot of people in the local community asking me questions. You might be asking yourself, like, why Instagram? Like, why not TikTok, or why not Facebook or YouTube? Well, Instagram, I feel like they have the most clout by far by any of the platforms. And by the way, they are pretty much the easiest to use. And then also, they are owned by Facebook. And usually when you talk to hear from about celebrities and all that, they always push their Instagram. And Instagram, like I said, definitely has the most clout. But one thing I really learned about Instagram is it rewards consistency. So if you are consistent on the platform, Instagram will definitely notice. The other thing is Instagram, like I said, is very easy to use. You can edit the videos and post yourself. You don't need to go out and hire a full-fledged crew or a social media manager. I love how easy they have actually made the platform. So let's talk about, like, what is your target audience? I really want you to think about that if you're going to be diving into Instagram and putting the work into it. The reason I say that is I decided that my page was going to be geared towards my local market and local people that in my community who might in the future want to buy or sell or just learn about me and kind of just give me some name recognition in the community. I didn't really target realtors, if that makes sense. So none of my content is about just like, hey, tips for realtors or anything like that, but it's all news and information about the local market. And what I noticed and what I really liked about Instagram is as I started to do this and I started to post more about real estate in my market, talk about local news events and things that were going on or kind of like breaking stories in my local market, the audience started to come as well. And as I looked at the numbers, people from my local market were looking at my Instagram, and most of the people looking at it were all around. So the algorithm quickly figured it out. So it wasn't like I was talking about my local town and then they were showing it, somewhere overseas. It was all very localized, or it is all very localized. And that is one of the things that I really love about Instagram. So you're wondering, all right, so I wanted to get Instagram, like, what exactly should I post? And like, Chris, what are you posting every day? Instagram Reels is going to be number one by far. 80% of my traffic comes from Instagram Reels. The reason that I like about it is very easy to use and post, and they push it out really quickly, because you got to imagine Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, they all are in a kind of a war for eyeballs, right? And short form video is currently what is in, and obviously has the long shelf life as well. So the other thing that I like to do on my Instagram that you really want to take, use of and learn to do is I definitely post on my stories daily and I give different tips. So we're going to go into that a little bit more. And then I also mix in some centric posts, like based on pictures or local news or things happening in my area. So let's talk about like Instagram feed posts, right? Like traditionally that would just be like a picture of you or your dog or your lunch. But what I really learned, what people really started to care about as I looked more at the analytics, is they wanted to learn more about you, kind of see what's going on in your life, updates like that, success stories. Maybe you have a brand new client that recently bought a house and you have a picture with them. The other thing that I really learned that people really wanted to know about was local news. And the funny thing is, my Instagram sometimes gets more views or more looks than the local news does in our area. And the reason being is I've kind of become the mayor of my town through Instagram. So example would be, let's say there's a brand new mall coming to your area or a brand new park, I would post something along the lines of new park opening in my town, as a caption with a picture. And then in the description, I would write a description about what is coming and the date it is expected. And then all of a sudden, people get excited and they start talking about it. And that right there has been one of the key drivers to grow my page. Another thing is things to do. So, is there upcoming events in your area? Is there a fair? Is there a festival? Is there a concert? Or like, what are the 7 best things for someone to do this weekend who has no plans? Like, post like that, but you got to make it really localized and centric. So I'm just making up a town. Say you live in Miami, Florida. It would be something like 7 best places to go hiking in Miami, Florida this weekend. Post like that, very localized. So if you're someone who doesn't love being in front of camera like myself, obviously, then you are going to want to do post like that. So a good example would be like we had a local airport that came here and they're adding on a brand new terminal. And I did a post about that and it went crazy. It got shared something like 30,000 times. Just that little local news story. And you got to imagine that's only people in my local town who really cared about it. So that kind of just shows you the power of posting these type of like news story posts. So let's talk about Instagram reels and like exactly like what should you post on the reels and exactly what is hitting for me or what's working well for me as a real estate agent. Definitely things to do or local happenings, like I said earlier, are huge. So you could go through and say, hey, you know what? This week happening in, Biloxi, Mississippi, there is this fair going on, brand new restaurants opening, and you have pictures of it in the background. And you could even just do a talk up with different pictures or videos talking about it. And that is something that you could do every week. So you could say from, whatever date it is, January 1st to January 7th, this is what's happening in Washington, D.C. Then the next week from January 7th to January 14th, this is what is happening in Washington, D.C. And all of a sudden, like I said, you become the local expert and the local mayor of your town. That is one of the most popular reels in my area for sure. Another thing is area information, like going around and talking about specific neighborhoods. Now, you got to learn how to talk really quick, right? Or you might say, hey, these are the 3 reasons that I would move to Dallas, Texas. Number 1, it's a great city, tons of job opportunities, things to do, things like that. But you want to make it super quick and really hitting with a lot of different pictures and videos. And I know that makes kind of funny, right? Because I said like under 10 seconds. But the reason being is imagine you're swiping on your phone, right? You're just going like this and you're maybe thinking about moving to Dallas or you're in the area. You're more than likely going to want to watch that. But then all of a sudden you start to see the same person's videos pop up. And as you're thinking about moving, you're more than likely going to call that person because they seem to know all the information on Instagram. Every time I walk around somewhere or go out to eat here in my local area, people mention, they say, hey man, I really love the video where you talked about this area. I really loved where you talked about this area, but you forgot to mention this, or you should talk about this town. And I love getting people's feedback, but it happens all the time because I talk about our local area and I don't try to reach the masses. Another huge thing that is really popular on Instagram right now, or just pretty much any time, to be honest with you, is restaurant. So maybe you go to a local restaurant and you say, hey, you know what, this local restaurant opened, I had this to eat, and you kind of do a bunch of different videos and clips of different foods they have, the vibe in the restaurant. And again, this video is only going to be about 8 to 10 seconds. So you can either just do video clips with audio and music of like a trending reel, or you can do a talk up and say, hey, this is brunch on Sunday at such and such restaurant in my town. That is extremely popular. Now you might be saying like, what does that have to do with real estate? Well, the thing is, you start to show up a lot. And again, you kind of become a local celebrity in your town, right? And the people and the restaurant also appreciates that you're doing that as well. And they more than likely will share that on their page. And that's something that we'll get into a little bit more when we're talking about stories. Another great thing is obviously you need your client's permission, but you could always do a testimonial with a client, or if you get a great new listing, a really quick hitting reel of the house should only last about 8 to 12 seconds. And I would always use a trending sound, but a very quick and hitting showcase of one of your new listings. That can really take off. And the one thing that I really found with that as well is a lot of my sphere watch my Instagram and they'll say, man, Chris, you're doing really well. I see you're posting this house, or I saw you post that house. That was a really cool house and things like that. But, just really watch the analytics stuff because sometimes people don't always care about the listing. So obviously, if it's a crazy, mansion, it's going to do a lot better than just a run of the mill house that, is just like an average for your area. But that definitely hits well for sure on Instagram. The other thing is just quick pictures of your area. So you could maybe do like right now, it could be like fall in your town or summer in your town. And you could just do a couple of this like snippets and be like, Seattle, Washington, most beautiful place during the fall. And just a couple quick 10-second shots. And you don't even have to be on camera. But again, that shows Instagram that it's more geared towards your local town. And again, you start to just show up in people's feeds a lot more. And it just gives you more clout and credibility. Now let's talk about Instagram stories. Like, what should you post? I try to post a story a day. Usually it's like, hey, I'm at a closing, or with the client's permission, I say, hey, look at this new listing. And don't you love the kitchen? Or what do you think is going on in the market? And I ask questions. Or if I go to like a local coffee shop, I'll say something like, hey, I was here at the such and such coffee shop, and I will tag them in it. And all the time, the local business, they appreciate it. They write me and they say, hey, thanks so much for tagging it. Thanks for mentioning us. We really appreciate it. And they'll share it on their story as well. So that kind of gets you out there as well. Another thing is Instagram story polls, right? So you could maybe take 2 pictures of your listings and say, hey, what do you prefer? Do you prefer to live in the country, or do you prefer city life? What I found the most engaging Instagram posts or Instagram stories are going to be the polls for sure. And those are very popular. And a lot of people will comment you as well. But one key thing that I want you to remember is always tag the location that you're at, and then always try to put some kind of link in. So if you're at a local restaurant, you're saying, I'm really enjoying my dinner at XYB restaurant, take a picture, tag their Instagram, and then also tag a link to their website or whatever it may be. And like I said, they will really appreciate it. And I've had some local businesses call and thank me personally and say, we just wanted to thank you because so many people went and viewed our page. And I'm like, of course, I love helping out the community. And if you ever see anything, definitely please share it on your page as well. Another great tool that I like to use on Instagram is they have a new feature that it's going to be out for forever pretty much, but it's called Instagram collaborations. Here's what I like about it, right? So say there's another agent that I work with, or a lender, or a title person, or a local business owner. You can tag them in the post, so it'll actually go on their feed as well as your feed. So you can kind of get off their followers, and you can get from your followers. So everyone has seen. I have done this several times with a few local businesses. And then I've also done it with my videographer. So he'll post it onto his page. I'll post it onto my page. And we kind of share. And you can actually do up to 3 different people on one. So you're all posting together and all the comments are linked together. So ideas to like collaborate for that would be photographers, videographers, local stores, other agents, lenders, coffee shops, and local business owners for sure. Because you obviously want to help push the local business. But imagine most of their people, all right, they're going to them there because they like it. And you're probably frequent there a lot, right? So them sharing that as well on their page is going to help you out a lot. Now, one thing I like to tell people is you're going to get a lot of comments. Don't ever try to get into arguments with people, or if there's a negative comment, you kind of just got to let it roll off your back, right? Like I've kind of seen it all and heard it all, but most of the time I just let it roll off my back and I don't engage with anything that's negative. Or, and I also comment a lot on what people say. And I say, hey, I really appreciate the feedback, or yep, I love this place as well, or appreciate it. Yeah, this is definitely a good area. Now, let's talk about the biggest mistakes that I see agents make when they get into Instagram, or that I have made myself along the way. Number one is just not being consistent. You literally have to post every day. Imagine you're following somebody like ESPN or Complex. They're posting several times a day, right? So you need to post at least one time a day. That is probably the biggest mistake. Consistency is always going to win. Only making content geared toward real estate agents is another big mistake. You want to make it geared towards your local community. And like I said, you want to become the mayor of your town or the local news source on Instagram. And then the other thing I kind of joke around is I say, if you're not a funny person, don't try to get on there and make rap videos or try to be funny. Sometimes it just doesn't come along right and it can be a little bit cringy. That is definitely a big advice that I would recommend because I've tried it and trust me, it didn't look that great. Now, how do you convert leads from Instagram, right? And say somebody does end up messaging you. you want to try to set an appointment. So you just write them back and say, hey, I appreciate it. I'm glad that you like the page. When is a good time that we can actually talk on the phone and talk about your goals and what you're looking to do in real estate? That is something that I usually write back. And then most people say, hey, you know what? I would love to talk to you more about that. Let's talk this Friday or this Saturday. My number one goal is just always to get an appointment, or if they just want some advice on the local community, I'll talk to them as well and kind of just be a resource there for them. And I always, like I said, I always try to go for the appointment at least, but I at least thank them as well for following my page. And sometimes I'll say, hey, what type of content do you want to see more of? And I have gotten some great tips as well from just like watching that, or some great clients from watching that as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We're going to put up a QR code where you can learn more about EXP University and see different things, in different courses. But as always, if you want to check me out, Chris Colgan team on my page, and appreciate you guys watching this training on Instagram.